Hi guys, so today I've really upped my game here and decided to provide some generalised information of simple and affordable mouse care. Now before I start, with every video there tends to be confusion, not particularly on my channel as I have just started myself, but I have seen it on others and would just like to avoid it for the sake of doing so. So first of all, these are my personal views and opinions, which will more likely be disagreed on, which I am totally acceptable of. So this video may be disagreed on, particularly by hamster owners. I'm not too sure because there's not many mouse care videos out here on YouTube, but I would like to just say basically mice are not hamsters. They're completely different. Mice have tails, hamsters don't. Mice are smaller, hamsters are bigger, you know what I mean? Like, those are just the simple ones, but obviously there are more technical and scientific type of differences in these two species. But although some care and guide are similar between the two pets, they're just completely different in their own way, so I just like to put that out there. And just to finish off on the disclaimers, this is no way, shape or form meant to be a convincing video like on how to convince your parents to own a pet mouse. First of all, if you were to convince your parents on how to own a pet mouse, it would have to be a family decision. They're noisy at night if you have light sleepers. You know, there's all this to be taken in, all this to be talked about truthfully at the table, you know what I mean? Probably not at the table while you're eating, because they might think of their spaghetti as mice tails, which we don't want. So we'll jump right into their basic needs and necessities. I was planning to do part 2 of this video, which is how to set up a basic tank and their feeding. Obviously I'll cover that in this video today, but I just wanted to make a separate video for the sake of making the separate video and just having more content on my channel, and I thought I could go more in depth there. So going on to the basics, what you generally want to provide is a suitable enclosure. I preferably love tanks. You're also wanting quality feeding. This may sound a bit funny when I say quality, but there are cheap alternatives of quality feed, which I will cover later on. You'll also want fresh water, which will obviously be provided daily. There is also hides and houses, which there are obviously cheaper alternatives to pet store hides and houses. You're also going to need a wheel. All mice need a wheel. There are some pros and cons of every wheel. I preferably love mesh wheels for the fact of mice being able to grip if they ever go out of control. And then you're going to need bedding. So obviously over time you can expand from the necessities and provide more store-bought items as your heart content. You don't have to stay on the level of wheel, food, water, house, you know what I mean? Also on the topic of store-bought items, store-bought treats are not needed at all. Mice would much more prefer and much more enjoy sort of some leftovers from your dinner, you know what I mean? Obviously in small portions, just a little pinch maybe of your meat, like a little bit of unsalted chicken, like turkey, keeping an eye out for what they are eating and the length of time that it is in their cage, because if fresh food is left in their cage over time, it can obviously go gross, build up bacteria. So on the topic of store-bought, mice do not need to be expensive. Over time I've discovered hacks, I guess in a way you could call it, that could help with this problem. We're just going to start with enclosures. So I personally like to avoid cheap barred pet store enclosures. Most of them don't meet the floor space requirements. Although they have levels do not count. As long as the floor space of the cage is 30 by 60 centimeters, you're completely fine. So instead you can go for tanks and aquariums. Cheaper alternatives as going second hand, which would include tanks that cannot withstand water anymore. And then we move on to bedding. Again, there is no perfect bedding, like there is no perfect enclosure. So Carefresh is a luxury, not a necessity. For mice, they're even not a luxury. It's just a paper bedding that doesn't exactly withstand tunneling and burrowing, as that's an absolute mice necessity. They love it. It's an absolute enlightenment and it's such an enjoyment to watch. So avoiding Carefresh, you can go for cheaper bulk alternatives to provide for their burrowing behaviour, such as aspen. When you do have aspen, you do have dust. In any bedding you have dust. To avoid this problem, all you need to do is pop it in a big flexi tub or a bucket, shake it around a bit, flip it over a few times. This will get rid of the bulk of the dust and will just avoid the heavy dust to be in your mice tanks. So there is also straw. With every fresh dried product, you would generally like to freeze it before use. So my process of using straw or any type of hay, I freeze, let it thaw and then dry it out. This will make it completely safe for your mice. This will avoid parasites and mites. Then moving on to feed, a cheap quality alternative are lab blocks / pellets. So you would like to avoid mouse and rat labelled food. Generally these do not at all meet the protein and dietary requirements that mice need. And then there is toys and houses. So here I have with me is an example. Obviously this is a tissue box. You can use tissue boxes. And then I have a toilet roll. All you need to do to make this into a fun little house or hide is just pop out the plastic. You can leave a few tissues in there. They'll absolutely love it. As long as you get all the remnants of plastic out of this box, because obviously with tissue boxes they have the plastic on top. On the side you can cut a hole the size of a tube, stick that in, and that's a fun little hide house tunnel. And with various cardboard boxes, mice will obviously make their own entrances. They will chew it away and they'll absolutely love it. And another alternative is driftwood. As you've seen in my cages, just in my recent updates video, I use driftwood as climbing toys and for their salt content, because it's great for mice to have just that little bit of salt. This is the way that I provide salt for my mice, is by driftwood. I go to my beach, I just pick up some suitable sizes of driftwood, freeze it for a couple of days just to be sure, let it thaw, let it dry, and then I pop it in my mice's cage. They love it. It is a huge alternative for chew toys and treats to keep their teeth trim. They will chew on it all day long. So that's about it for the basics and the alternatives to certain products for mice. So just moving on to some little scraps of information I've just put together myself. Personally, mice are more of a look no touch animal. Obviously it would be helpful if you had the basic handling down pat for transportation to vets and their carrier cage when you're cleaning their current cage, but again, you don't need to have a perfect trick trained mouse, although it would be fun. It's just a lot of time if you had it, but again, this video is meant to just sort of be a mice don't require what you think they do. They're a complete simple, just awesome pet to have. Mice do smell, so this can be easily avoided with proper cleaning and housing determined on the amount of mice that you have in that certain tank or enclosure, depending on what you prefer to use. Generally, mice only need cleaning once a week. So mice are best in trios or minimum pairs